I thought my son Brandon was joking when he slid those bank forms across my kitchen table. From now on, your paycheck goes into my account. You don't need anything anyway, he said, his wife Ashley nodding beside him. I quietly agreed, signing where he pointed. That night, they came over for their usual free dinner. But when they walked through my front door, they both screamed in shock. The completely empty house told them everything they needed to know about their biggest mistake. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. My name is Jodi, and for 56 years, I believed motherhood meant sacrifice. When my husband Paul died in a construction accident, Brandon was only 12. I held that boy as he sobbed into my shoulder, promising him that nothing would change, that I'd make sure he had everything he needed. I kept that promise even when it nearly killed me. I worked double shifts at Riverside General Hospital, my feet swollen and aching after 16-hour days. While other nurses took breaks, I picked up extra hours in the emergency room. The night supervisor position paid more, so I took it, even though it meant missing Brandon's basketball games. I told myself he'd understand someday. When Brandon got accepted to Northwestern University, I cried tears of joy in the bathroom at work. The $48,000 annual tuition made my stomach drop, but I refinanced the house Paul and I had bought together. That beautiful craftsman home with the wraparound porch became my second job. Every memory of Paul lived in those walls, but Brandon's future mattered more. I missed my own mother's funeral because it fell during Brandon's law school entrance exams. My sister Patricia called me selfish, said Mom would have understood if I'd explained. But Brandon was stressed, studying 18 hours a day. He needed his meals delivered to the library, needed someone to quiz him on practice questions. Mom was gone, but Brandon's dreams were still alive. The day he graduated from law school, I sat in the audience wearing the same dress I'd worn to 3 other graduations. Around me, parents snapped photos with expensive cameras. I had pawned mine months earlier to cover Brandon's bar exam fees. When they called his name, Brandon Walker, Juris Doctor, I felt every sacrifice had been worth it. He met Ashley during his first year at the firm. She was pretty in that polished way that spoke of money and private schools. Her blonde hair stayed perfect even in Chicago wind. When Brandon brought her home for dinner, she complimented my pot roast while her eyes cataloged everything in my house. "Your mother has such interesting antiques," she told Brandon later, not knowing I could hear from the kitchen. "Those old things, she's had them forever," Brandon laughed. Those old things included my grandmother's china, Paul's father's pocket watch collection, and a signed first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird that had been Paul's last anniversary gift. After they married, the dinners became routine. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they'd arrive at 6:30 sharp. Ashley would kiss my cheek, leaving a smear of expensive lipstick. Brandon would immediately check his phone, dealing with urgent client matters, while I served the meal I'd spent 3 hours preparing. "Mom makes the best lasagna," Brandon would say already on his 3rd helping. "She really does," Ashley would agree, pushing food around her plate. Though I've been trying to get Brandon to cut back on carbs. I'd smile and offer seconds anyway, watching my son eat with the satisfaction that only mothers understand. The credit card incident happened 2 years into their marriage. Brandon showed up alone on a Tuesday, his face drawn and worried. Ashley had a shopping problem, he explained. $45,000 in debt spread across 12 cards. The minimum payments were killing them. "I hate to ask, Mom, but could you help just until I make partner?" I took out a second mortgage the next day. Riverside General had good benefits, but nurses' salary only stretched so far. The banker, a young man who looked like Brandon, explained the terms carefully. 25 years of additional payments, but what else was I going to do? Let my son's marriage fail over money. 6 months ago, everything changed, though I didn't tell anyone. During a routine mammogram, they found the lump. Dr. Sarah Hampton, my former colleague, held my hand as she explained the diagnosis. Stage 2, treatable, but aggressive. "You need to tell Brandon," she insisted. After the Henderson case, I promised. He's led counsel. This would destroy his focus. I scheduled chemotherapy around our dinner schedule. Told Brandon my new short haircut was just trying something different. When the nausea hit, I blamed it on a stomach bug. When I lost 30 pounds, I said I'd joined a fitness class at the senior center. My 68th birthday came and went without a call from Brandon. At 4 in the afternoon, I stopped checking my phone. At 6, I ate a piece of store-bought cake alone. At 8:30, Brandon's car pulled into my driveway. Sorry, Mom, crazy day at the office. Listen, Ashley found this amazing investment opportunity in Costa Rica. We need $10,000 for the buy-in. You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't a sure thing. I wrote the check while he scrolled through property photos on his phone. He grabbed it without looking up, kissed my forehead, and left. The birthday card I'd hopefully placed on the counter remained unsigned. Last month during dinner, something shifted. Ashley studied my mail pile while Brandon carved the roast. She thought I wasn't watching, but after 56 years of nursing, you develop eyes in the back of your head. Your mother must be doing well, she commented casually. Social Security plus that hospital pension. What do they call it? The defined benefit plan. Mom doesn't talk about money, Brandon said, but I caught the look between them. I'm just saying at her age, what does she really need? This big house for one person seems excessive. My neighbor Margaret caught me the next morning as I retrieved the newspaper. 82 years old with sharp eyes behind thick glasses, she'd lived next door for 30 years. Jodi, I need to tell you something. My grandson did the same thing. Started sweet-ended with me in a home and him in my house. Watch yourself. I laughed it off, but her words stuck. That night, I found my financial statements moved pages out of order. Someone had been through my desk. The next morning, I bought a small safe and moved my important papers. But I was already too late. The wheels were already in motion, and I was about to discover just how long my son had been planning my financial destruction. The mind game started subtly on a Thursday morning. Brandon called earlier than usual, his voice carrying that concerned tone I'd heard him use with difficult clients. Mom, I stopped by yesterday to drop off those vitamins Ashley found for you, the arthritis ones. But you weren't home. Where were you around 2 o'clock? I set down my coffee cup carefully. Thursday prayer group at church, same as every week for 15 years. Are you sure it was yesterday? Because Mrs. Chen next door said she saw you wandering around the garden looking confused. My spine stiffened. Mrs. Chen had moved to Florida 3 years ago. The new neighbors were a young couple with twins. Brandon, I think you mean the Johnsons. And I was deadheading my roses. Right. The Johnsons. See, Mom. This is what I'm talking about, these little mix-ups. They're happening more often. After he hung up, I stood in my kitchen feeling unsteady. Had I been confused? No. I kept a detailed calendar, always had. But doubt crept in like morning fog, unwelcome and disorienting. The following week brought the mystery of the unpaid bills. Brandon arrived unannounced on a Monday, finding me in the middle of preparing his favorite pot roast. He held a stack of envelopes, his forehead creased with worry. Mom, I found these in your mailbox. Final notices. The water bill is 3 months overdue. And the electricity. They're threatening disconnection. I wiped my hands on my apron, reaching for the papers. My breath caught. These were bills I'd paid. I remembered specifically writing the checks, balancing my checkbook down to the penny as Paul had taught me. There must be some mistake. I have the carbon copies. Where? Brandon challenged, following me to my small office. But the carbon copies weren't in my checkbook. The register showed no record of the payments. My hands trembled as I flipped through empty pages where I knew I'd written those entries. It's okay, Mom, Brandon soothed, pulling out his phone. I'll pay these online right now, but maybe we should talk about me helping you with the monthly bills. Ashley appeared in the doorway, her timing too perfect to be coincidental. Oh, Jodi, we're not upset. Everyone forgets things. My grandmother started this way too. Started what way? I wanted to scream, but I smiled instead. The nurse's smile I'd perfected over decades. Calm, reassuring, even when everything inside was crumbling. The medication incident nearly broke me. I've taken the same blood pressure medicine for 10 years. 1 pill every morning with breakfast. Simple, routine, impossible to confuse. Yet there was Ashley holding my pill organizer with a triumphant look. Jodi, you've been taking double doses. Look, Tuesday's compartment is empty, but it's only Monday. Brandon rushed over, examining the evidence. Mom, this is dangerous. Dr. Kemp specifically warned about overdosing on lisinopril. I filled that organizer yesterday, I protested. Today's pills are in Monday's slot. But today is Tuesday, Ashley said gently, pointing to their kitchen calendar. I stared at the date circled in red. Had I lost an entire day? The calendar on my refrigerator showed Monday, but when I pointed this out, Brandon's face grew more concerned. Mom, you haven't changed that calendar in 3 days. See, your handwriting here says Brandon dinner for Saturday. We came for dinner Saturday, remember? I remembered, but the doubt was poisonous, seeping into every certainty. That night, I marked my calendar with 3 different pens, took photos with my phone, evidence of my own sanity. The breaking point came during what Brandon called an intervention. I'd invited them for Sunday lunch, making my mother's fried chicken recipe. Instead, Brandon arrived with a stranger in a gray suit. Mom, this is my friend David Sterling. He's an attorney who specializes in elder care. David Sterling had the practiced smile of someone who delivered bad news for a living. He sat in Paul's old recliner without asking, pulling out a leather folder. Mrs. Walker, your son, is concerned about some recent incidents. Nothing to be ashamed of. Aging brings challenges for everyone. I'm 68, not 90, I said firmly. Of course, but Brandon mentioned confusion with Bill's medication errors getting lost. Getting lost, I haven't been lost since we moved here in 1975. Brandon leaned forward. Mom, last week you called me from the grocery store. You couldn't remember where you parked. This was a complete fabrication. I'd called him from the store to ask if Ashley had any dietary restrictions for dinner, but arguing would only make me seem defensive, exactly what they wanted. David Sterling produced pamphlets about assisted living facilities, sliding them across my coffee table like evidence in a trial. These are excellent communities, social activities, medical supervision, prepared meals. I prepare meals for a living, I said. Well, I did before retiring. And you did it beautifully, Ashley interjected. But maybe it's time to let others take care of you for a change. That evening, after they left, I sat in my kitchen crying. Not from sadness, but from rage. The kind of anger that burns so hot it comes out as water. They were systematically destroying my confidence, my credibility, my sense of self. Dr. Sarah Hampton saved me. My former colleague had insisted on coffee after my last oncology appointment. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong beyond cancer. Jodi, what's really going on? I told her everything. The bills, the medication, the attorney. Sarah's expression grew darker with each detail. This is textbook elder abuse. The gaslighting, the documentation, the concerned third party. I've seen it dozens of times. But what if they're right? What if I am losing it? Sarah grabbed my hands across the table. Listen to me. I've known you 30 years. You're the sharpest nurse I ever worked with. Last month, you corrected my dosage calculation on a pediatric patient. Your mind is perfect. Then why can't I find those carbon copies? Why was my medication organizer wrong? Because someone is entering your house and moving things, changing things. Jodi, you need to document everything, and you need to be very, very careful. That night, I discovered the truth. I'd been pretending to doze in my chair when I heard the back door open. Soft footsteps crossed my kitchen. Through slitted eyes, I watched Brandon slip upstairs to my office. 20 minutes later, he descended with papers in his hand. After his car pulled away, I found my bank statements photographed, but replaced my checkbook rifled through and my medication organizer rearranged. The water bill carbon copy I'd been searching for was in my bathroom trash, torn into pieces. My son wasn't worried about my mental state. He was creating it. I called my sister Patricia that evening, needing to hear a familiar voice. Instead, I got suspicion. Brandon called me last week. He's so worried about you, Jodi. Says you've been forgetting things, acting paranoid. Patricia, I'm fine. He's lying. This is exactly what he said you'd say, that you'd deny there's a problem. Maybe you should listen to him. He only wants what's best for you. After 50 years of sacrificing for Brandon, my own sister believed him over me. The isolation was complete, exactly as he'd planned. But I wasn't done fighting. That night, I ordered tiny cameras online, shipping them to Margaret's house. I opened a new bank account at a credit union across town, starting to move small amounts. I might be old, but I wasn't defeated. The next morning, I smiled as Brandon called to check on me. Agreed when he suggested I seemed stressed. Thanked him for caring so much. "That's what sons are for," he said warmly. I hung up and immediately called a locksmith. If my son wanted to play games with my mind, he was about to learn that his mother had a few moves of her own. The gaslighting phase was ending. The evidence gathering was about to begin. 2 weeks after installing my hidden cameras, Brandon orchestrated his masterstroke. He called on a Wednesday morning, his voice dripping with false concern and rehearsed worry. "Mom, we need to have a family meeting this Saturday. Ashley and I have been losing sleep worrying about you." I stirred honey into my tea, watching through my kitchen window as cardinals fought over the feeder. "What's this about, Brandon?" "We'll discuss it Saturday. Just know that we love you and want what's best." Those words should have been comforting. From my son's mouth, they sounded like a threat. Saturday arrived gray and drizzling, fitting weather for an ambush. I'd prepared Brandon's favorite coffee cake, the one with cinnamon swirls his grandmother taught me. The familiar ritual of baking calmed my nerves, even as I placed a freshly charged recording device inside my knitting basket. They arrived precisely at 10, Ashley carrying a professional briefcase instead of her usual designer purse. Brandon wore his court suit, the charcoal one I'd bought him for his first trial. They meant business. "Mom, please sit." Brandon gestured to my own living room chair as if he were the host. Ashley arranged papers across my coffee table with surgical precision. Graphs, charts, bank logos. A presentation worthy of a boardroom aimed at one elderly woman who'd given everything. Brandon cleared his throat. "Mom, we've been tracking some concerning patterns. Your spending has become erratic. Last month you withdrew $600 in cash. What did you need that for?" I thought of the oncology copays I hadn't wanted him to discover. Groceries, home repairs, the usual things. $600. Ashley's penciled eyebrows arched impossibly high. "Jodi, that's excessive for one person. This is what we mean about judgment issues." Brandon produced more papers. "There's more. You've been writing checks to charities we've never heard of. $50 here, $100 there. It adds up. The food bank, the women's shelter. I've donated to them for 20 years. But you can't afford it anymore." Brandon leaned forward, his concerned sun mask firmly in place. "Mom, at your age, with your confusion issues, you need to conserve resources." Ashley dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd conveniently prepared. "We hate seeing you struggle like this. The bills, you forgot the medication mix-ups. We can't stand by and watch you deteriorate." Her performance deserved an award. The tears looked almost real, though I noticed they didn't smudge her waterproof mascara. Which is why. Brandon stood pacing like he did in court. "We've found the perfect solution. I'll take over managing your finances, pay your bills, handle investments, ensure you never have to worry about these complicated matters again." He produced a folder thick with legal documents. The cover sheet read "Durable Power of Attorney" in bold letters. Beneath it, Financial Management Agreement and Property Transfer Authorization. "This is standard," he assured me, though nothing about stealing from your mother seemed standard to me. Thousands of families use these tools to protect elderly parents. Protect. Such an interesting word choice for theft. Ashley pulled out her phone, showing me photos of assisted living facilities. If you're not comfortable with Brandon managing things, these are wonderful alternatives. They handle everything: meals, medication, finances. Very comprehensive. The threat hung unspoken but clear. Sign over control or be forced into a home. I picked up the documents, pretending to struggle with the fine print. "I'll need time to read these. My eyes aren't what they used to be." "Of course," Brandon said too quickly. "But Mom, every day you delay is another day something could go wrong. What if you forget to pay the mortgage? You could lose the house." I've never missed a mortgage payment in 41 years. There's always a first time, Ashley murmured, especially with cognitive decline. Brandon knelt beside my chair, taking my hands. His grip felt like shackles. Mom, you trust me, don't you? I'm your son. Everything I've achieved is because of you. Now let me take care of you. Looking into his eyes, I searched for the boy who'd cried for 3 days when his goldfish died, who'd made me Mother's Day cards with construction paper and too much glue. That child was gone, replaced by a stranger, wearing an expensive suit and calculating my net worth. I need a few days, I repeated. His jaw tightened. Fine, but I'm scheduling an appointment with Dr. Kemp. We need a cognitive evaluation, for everyone's peace of mind. They left the documentation, Ashley patting my shoulder with fingernails that felt like talons. After their car disappeared, I spread the papers across my table. Brandon hadn't just prepared power of attorney forms. He'd included property deeds, beneficiary changes, even a pre-signed real estate listing agreement for my house. My hands shook as I photographed each page. Buried in subsection 12, I found the most damning clause. Agent shall have unlimited discretion in disposing of principal's assets, including but not limited to real estate investments and personal property. Translation: Brandon could sell everything I owned and keep the proceeds. That evening, Patricia called again. Her voice carried a new distance, carefully scripted concern. Jodi, Brandon told me about the meeting. He's being so patient with you. Not many sons would handle this so professionally. Patricia, he's trying to steal my house. That's exactly the kind of paranoid thinking he warned me about. Jodi, you're sick. Let him help you. After we hung up, I realized Brandon had been more thorough than I'd imagined. Every family member, every friend had received his version of my decline. I was isolated exactly as planned. But isolation brought clarity. Sunday morning, I dressed for church, but drove to the office of Mark Stevens, an attorney who'd handled Paul's estate decades ago. Now in his 70s, Mark listened without interruption as I explained everything. Show me the documents, he said simply. His expression darkened with each page. This is aggressive even by estate theft standards. Your son isn't just planning to manage your finances. This gives him authority to liquidate everything. Can he force me to sign? Not legally, but Jodi, if he gets a doctor to declare you incompetent, the court could appoint him guardian. Then he wouldn't need your signature. The appointment with Dr. Kemp was Thursday. I had 4 days. Mark referred me to Janet Rodriguez, a forensic accountant who specialized in elder abuse cases. Janet worked from a small office above a bakery, the smell of fresh bread and odd comfort, as she reviewed my financial records. Your son has been studying your assets for months, she confirmed. These bank inquiries, credit checks. He knows exactly what you're worth. How much does he think that is? Janet calculated quickly. Between the house, pension savings, and investments, about $1.2 million. Not wealthy by today's standards, but certainly worth stealing. $1.2 million. The sum of a lifetime's careful saving, Paul's life insurance, 40 years of night shifts, and missed holidays. To Brandon, just a number on a spreadsheet. There's something else. Janet pulled up property records. Your son has significant gambling debts, hidden from standard credit reports, but I have sources. He owes dangerous people about $800,000. The room spun. Gambling debts. My straight-laced son who lectured me about charitable donations. When did this start? About 3 years ago, right around when he started visiting you more frequently. 3 years, when the dinners became regular, when the requests for money accelerated, when my son's love transformed into a business transaction. That night, I sat in Paul's study surrounded by photo albums. Brandon's first day of school, gap-toothed and grinning. High school graduation, valedictorian medal gleaming. Law school commencement, my tears of pride visible even in faded photographs. When had I lost him? Or had I ever truly had him? The cameras revealed the answer. At 2 a.m, my back door opened. Brandon entered with practiced stealth, heading straight for my office. He photographed more documents, then did something that stopped my heart. He placed papers in my desk. New bills, new notices, new evidence of my supposed decline. By Thursday, I was ready. Dr. Kemp had been my physician for 15 years. I arrived early bringing Janet's documentation and Mark's legal opinion. When the nurse called me back, I knew this appointment would determine my future. "Brandon's worried about you," Dr. Kemp began. "Brandon's trying to rob me," I replied, "and I can prove it." For 20 minutes, I presented evidence. The doctored bills, the medication, tampering, the late-night break-ins. Dr. Kemp's expression shifted from skepticism to horror. "Jodi, this is criminal. Have you gone to the police?" "Not yet. I need more evidence. But I need you to document my mental state, officially." He conducted the most thorough cognitive exam possible. Memory tests, problem-solving, temporal awareness. I passed everything with flying colors. "I'll write a letter stating you show no signs of cognitive impairment," he promised. "In fact, you seem sharper than most 40-year-olds. Armed with medical clearance, I returned home to find Brandon's car in my driveway. He stood on my porch cell phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what she says," he barked. "Find another doctor. There has to be someone who'll diagnose dementia." He ended the call when he saw me. "Mom, Dr. Kemp called. He says you passed the evaluation." "Disappointing for you." His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold underneath. "I'm trying to help you." "No, Brandon. You're trying to help yourself to my money. But thank you for finally being honest about it." I walked past him into my house, locking the door behind me. Through the window, I watched him storm to his car, already making another call, planning his next move. But I was planning too. That night, I began the most painful transformation of my life. From victim to strategist, from prey to predator, from loving mother to avenging angel. The financial trap had been set. But Brandon didn't realize he wasn't the only one capable of deception. His biggest mistake was teaching me exactly how cruel family could be. Now it was time to show him what happens when you corner a woman who spent 68 years learning how to survive. The following Sunday arrived with unusual warmth for October Indian summer, stretching through the Midwest. Brandon and Ashley invited themselves for lunch, arriving 20 minutes early while I was still setting the table. I heard their key in the lock, the one I hadn't yet had time to change. "Just making sure you're okay, Mom," Brandon called out, though I could see him scanning the room, cataloging items of value. I served pot roast with all the trimmings playing the devoted mother while my stomach churned. They chatted about vacation plans, a Mediterranean cruise that would cost $30,000. Neither mentioned how they'd afford it, though. Ashley kept glancing at my grandmother's silver service. After the meal, I excused myself to lie down, claiming fatigue from poor sleep. They exchanged satisfied looks, interpreting my exhaustion as decline rather than the bone-deep weariness of chemotherapy I still hadn't mentioned. "Take your time, Mom," Brandon said. "We'll just tidy up." From my bedroom, I listened to them move through my kitchen. Drawers opened, cabinets shifted. They weren't tidying. They were appraising. Then Ashley's voice low but clear. "How much longer do we have to do this? These Sunday dinners are killing my diet." "Few more weeks," Brandon replied. "Dr. Patel says if we document enough confusion, he'll sign the incompetency papers." Dr. Patel, not Dr. Kemp. They'd found someone else, someone willing to diagnose dementia for the right price. "And you're sure she won't fight it?" "Look at her. She can barely stay awake through lunch. The nursing home will be a relief for everyone." "Sunrise Manor called back," Ashley said. "They have an opening in the memory unit, $2,800 a month." "Perfect. Medicaid will cover it after we spend down her assets. The house should sell for at least $400,000. My beautiful home where Paul carried me over the threshold as a bride reduced to a line item." "What about your sister Patricia seems suspicious?" Brandon laughed an ugly sound I'd never heard from him before. "Aunt Pat believes whatever I tell her. Last week I said Mom tried to give the mailman a check for $10,000. Complete fiction, but Pat ate it up." "You're terrible," Ashley giggled. "Though that's why I married you. You're ruthless when you need to be." Mom made it easy. All those years of Brandon needs this, Brandon deserves that. She trained me to take from her. My hand covered my mouth, stifling a sob. Had I created this monster with my love? The best part, Brandon continued, is she'll thank us. Oh, Brandon, you're so good to take care of me. Right until they sedate her in the nursing home. Speaking of sedation, did you replace her blood pressure pills with the higher dose? Yesterday. She'll start feeling dizzy soon, more evidence of decline. They'd tampered with my medication, actual poison from my own son. Brilliant, though I still say we should have moved faster. What if she changes her will? She won't. Mom's too trusting. Besides, I'm already listed as sole beneficiary on everything. Changed it myself last month when I had her signing those charity forms, slipped the real documents in between. My blood turned to ice. I'd signed papers last month, Brandon claiming they were for a donation to the children's hospital. How many other documents had I unknowingly signed? The gambling debt won't wait much longer. Ashley's voice carried new tension. Marcus called again. He wants his money. Tell Marcus he'll have it by Christmas. Once Mom's declared incompetent, I can leverage the house for a loan, pay him off, and still have enough for the cruise. What if she realizes what's happening? And does what? Tell people her successful lawyer's son is trying to help her? No one would believe her. I've spent 3 years laying groundwork. Every friend, every family member thinks she's losing it. Their voices moved toward the living room. I crept to my bedroom door, cracking it open to listen better. Show me the account statements again, Ashley demanded. Papers rustled. My papers stolen from my office during one of Brandon's midnight visits. See this $800,000 in retirement funds, another $200 in savings. The house is paid off, worth at least $450 in this market, plus her Social Security and pension. Over $1 million, and she lives like a church mouse. That's Depression-era mentality. Save everything, spend nothing. Works in our favor. When do we move on the house? Next month. I've already talked to a realtor. Cash buyer interested in flipping it. We can close in 2 weeks once I have power of attorney. My knees nearly buckled. They'd already found a buyer for my home. What about her stuff? Some of these antiques might be valuable. Estate sale. Maybe keep a few pieces to make it look like we care. The rest goes. 41 years of memories headed for an auction block. Ashley's voice turned thoughtful. You know what bothers me. She never fights back, just takes whatever you dish out. It's almost too easy. That's who she is, a doormat, always has been. A doormat, the woman who'd worked 16-hour shifts to put him through school, who'd held his hand through nightmares, celebrated every achievement, forgiven every failure. A doormat. Remember to act surprised when they diagnose her, Ashley reminded him. Concerned son devastated by mother's decline. Please, I could win an Oscar for my performance. We just want what's best for Mom. The nursing home staff will eat it up. Speaking of eating, she barely touched her lunch. Good. Weight loss, another symptom. Dr. Patel loves documentation. They moved back toward the kitchen. I heard water running, dishes clattering. Playing house in my home while planning my imprisonment. Oh, I forgot to mention, Ashley said. I found a place for us in Lincoln Park. 3 bedrooms perfect for when we start a family. How much? $800,000, but with her money. We'll have enough. God knows she owes me after all those years of guilt trips and manipulation. Manipulation, every sacrifice I'd made was thrown back as a weapon. My mother warned me about her, Ashley continued. Said any woman who'd give up so much must have ulterior motives, probably trying to control you through obligation. Exactly. Well, the obligation ends soon. Sunrise Manor has a no visitors policy for the first 90 days. Helps patients adjust, they say. 90 days. 3 months where no one could check on me, verify my condition, or hear my protests. Their voices faded as they returned to the living room. I risked opening my door wider, peering down the hallway. They sat on my sofa, Brandon's laptop open between them. Pull up the facility's website, he instructed. The screen glowed with images of smiling seniors, sunny rooms, manicured gardens. Nothing like the reality of industrial meals and over-medication. They have a lockdown wing for flight risks, Brandon noted. In case she tries to leave, would she? Doubt it, but better safe than sorry. Can't have her wandering to the police station with wild stories. They laughed together, the sound chilling in its casualness. This wasn't a desperate decision or a reluctant choice. They enjoyed this. The planning, the deception, the cruelty. Wait, look at this. Ashley pointed to the screen. The facility's reviews, families complaining about unexplained bruises, missing belongings. So not our problem once she's there. Brandon, she's still your mother. No, she's an obstacle, one that's about to be removed. I pressed my fist against my mouth, fighting nausea that had nothing to do with chemotherapy. This stranger wearing my son's face had no connection to the child I'd raised. We should go, Ashley said finally. Let her rest. Next week's the big performance. Right, the concerned children intervening before tragedy strikes. They gathered their things, Brandon pocketing something from my desk drawer. More evidence to plant later, no doubt. Mom, he called up the stairs. We're leaving. Rest well. Thank you for lunch, Ashley added. Take care of yourself. Their false concern made my skin crawl. I waited until their car disappeared before emerging from my room. The house felt violated, as if their greed had left a visible stain. In my office, I checked what Brandon had taken, my passport of all things, preventing international travel or planning to use my identity for something worse. I sank into my desk chair, overwhelmed by the scope of their betrayal. 3 years of groundwork. Every family member turned against me. Medical professionals bought off. A nursing home selected for its isolation policies. But they'd made one crucial error. They'd revealed everything while I listened. That night, I called Mark Stevens at home. I need to see you first thing tomorrow. It's urgent. What happened? I have evidence. Real evidence. Recorded conversations of conspiracy to commit elder abuse fraud, false imprisonment. Can we stop them? With recordings, absolutely. But Jodi, this will mean criminal charges against your son. I thought of Brandon calling me a doormat, of Ashley's casual cruelty, of their laughter while planning my imprisonment. Good. When can we involve the police? I'll call Detective Gonzalez tonight. Maria specializes in elder abuse cases. But we need to move fast. Once you're in that facility, everything becomes harder. After hanging up, I began documenting everything I'd overheard. Times, dates, specific threats. The proof that would destroy Brandon's career and freedom. As I wrote, my phone buzzed, a text from Brandon. Forgot to mention scheduled a family meeting next Sunday. Important decisions to make. Love you. Love. The word felt like poison from his fingers. I texted back, looking forward to it. Let him think I remained the compliant victim, the doormat mother who'd never fight back. Sunday would bring revelations, just not the ones he expected. In my bedroom, I opened the safe I'd installed behind a painting. Inside lay everything Precious Paul's wedding ring, family photos, and now the recording device with Brandon's full confession. Evidence of a son who'd transformed love into a weapon. The discovery phase was complete. Now came the hard part, pretending nothing had changed while orchestrating the complete destruction of those who'd sought to destroy me. Brandon thought he'd spent 3 years planning the perfect crime. He had no idea his mother had been taking notes. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that makes you believe in fresh starts. I sat at my kitchen table, signing my name to documents that would give my son complete control over my life. Each signature felt like signing my own death warrant, yet my hand remained steady. Brandon watched with barely concealed triumph, Ashley beside him practically vibrating with anticipation. They'd arrived at 7 sharp, eager to secure their prize before I could change my mind. Take your time, Mom. Brandon said, though his fingers drummed impatiently on the table. Make sure you understand everything. I understood perfectly. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, financial management authorization, the legal weapons they'd use to dismantle my life piece by careful piece. Should I read through it again? I asked, adding a tremor to my voice that wasn't entirely manufactured. No need, Ashley said quickly. Brandon explained everything yesterday. This is just protection for you. Protection, like a wolf protecting sheep. I signed the final page with a flourish, then sat back in my chair. There. I hope this helps you worry less about me. Brandon scooped up the documents before the ink dried. This is the right decision, Mom. You'll see. They left within minutes, Ashley already on her phone with someone about viewing luxury apartments. I watched their car disappear, then made my own call. Janet, it's done. They have the signed documents. Janet Rodriguez's voice carried grim satisfaction. Perfect. Those aren't the standard forms they think they are. Mark Stevens modified them beautifully. They have power of attorney over exactly $3,000 in a segregated account. Nothing more. They won't check. Would you? They're too drunk on victory. By the time they realize the limitations, it'll be too late. The modified documents had been Mark's idea. Legally valid but severely restricted, they'd pass casual inspection while protecting my actual assets. Brandon's arrogance would be his downfall, assuming his doormat mother had signed whatever he'd placed in front of her. After hanging up, I drove to the credit union across town. The manager, informed of my situation, helped me transfer everything into trust accounts Brandon couldn't touch. My retirement fund savings, everything except the house, moved beyond his reach. Ma'am, I have to ask, the manager said quietly. Your own son is doing this. My son died years ago, I replied. I just didn't realize it until now. That afternoon, I met with Detective Maria Gonzalez at a coffee shop downtown. A compact woman with sharp eyes and silver threading through black hair, she listened to my recordings without interruption. This is textbook elder abuse, she said finally. The premeditation, the conspiracy with his wife, the medical fraud. We can arrest them today. Not yet. I stirred my untouched coffee. They're meeting with dangerous people about gambling debts. I want you to know who else is involved. Maria studied me carefully. You're playing a dangerous game, Mrs. Walker. They played it first. I'm just better at it than they expected. She agreed to wait, but insisted on increased surveillance. The moment you feel threatened, you call. These gambling people don't play games. Neither do I, not anymore. That evening, I installed more cameras throughout my house, hidden in picture frames tucked behind books disguised as air fresheners. Every room became a stage, every conversation potential evidence. The transformation wasn't just external. Something fundamental shifted inside me like tectonic plates, realigning after decades of pressure. The woman who'd apologized for existing was gone. In her place stood someone I barely recognized, someone Paul would have been proud of. Brandon called Tuesday morning, his voice electric with excitement. Mom, I've got great news. I've started organizing your finances. You had bills scattered everywhere. Oh dear, I hope it wasn't too much trouble. No trouble at all, though I did notice some unusual withdrawals. We should talk about those. The withdrawals to my new accounts, no doubt. Let him wonder. Of course, dear, whatever you think is best. His pause suggested confusion at my easy compliance. Good. Confused people make mistakes. Wednesday brought Ashley to my door with a tape measure and notebook. Just getting dimensions, she chirped, for when we need to move furniture. I watched her measure my living room, already planning where her designer sofa would sit. She photographed my grandmother's china cabinet from multiple angles, no doubt, for the estate sale listing. This house has such good bones, she murmured. With some updates, it could be spectacular. I've always liked it as is, I said mildly. Of course you have, but sometimes change is good, right? I smiled, thinking of the changes coming her way. Federal prison would certainly be different from Lincoln Park. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out photo albums from the basement. Brandon's childhood spread across my dining table in Kodachrome memories. The Halloween he insisted on being a Judge Gavel made from cardboard. His high school mock trial victory. Law school graduation where he'd thanked me for showing him that justice matters. When had justice become just us? Just him and Ashley against the world? I found a photo from his 10th birthday. He'd asked for donations to the animal shelter instead of gifts, spending his birthday walking dogs and cleaning kennels. That boy had existed. That compassion had been real, which made its absence now even more devastating. Thursday morning, Dr. Sarah Hampton called with my latest test results. The chemotherapy was working better than expected, tumors shrinking, prognosis improving. The irony wasn't lost on me. My body was healing while my family tried to destroy me. "You need to tell Brandon," Sarah urged again. "I will, after this is resolved." "Jodi, what's really going on?" I told her everything. Her silence stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Dear God," she finally whispered. "Your own son—" "The cancer is easier," I admitted. "At least it's not personal." "What can I do?" "Document everything medical, every appointment, every test, every conversation proving my mental clarity. I need unassailable medical records." Done, and Jodi give him hell. Friday arrived with Brandon's most ambitious move yet. He appeared at my door with 2 men in suits and a woman carrying medical bags. "Mom, these are specialists from Sunrise Manor. They just want to evaluate your living situation. Make sure you're safe here." The woman introducing herself as Dr. Patricia Morse had the dead eyes of someone who'd sold their medical ethics long ago. She walked through my home making notes while the men photographed everything. "Mrs. Walker, do you ever feel confused?" Dr. Morse asked. "Only about why you're here without my consent." She marked something on her clipboard. "Hostility, common in early-stage dementia." "I see. Is incompetence common in early-stage medical fraud?" Brandon stepped between us. "Mom's having a bad day. She gets agitated with strangers." "I get agitated with criminals," I corrected. "But please continue your charade." They left after an hour, Dr. Morse promising a comprehensive report. Brandon lingered, his mask finally slipping. "Why are you making this difficult?" "Making what difficult? Your theft, your betrayal, your plan to lock me away while you spend my money?" His face flushed. "You're sick, Mom. Everyone sees it but you." "What I see is a son who views his mother as an ATM. But you're right about one thing. I am sick. Sick of pretending you're still the boy I raised." He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle windows. Through the curtains, I watched him make angry phone calls from his car. Good. Angry people make even more mistakes. Saturday, I executed my final preparations. The house was ready, cameras positioned, evidence secured. I'd transferred everything valuable to a storage unit Brandon didn't know existed. The china, the silver Paul's watch collection, all safe from their greedy hands. I stood in my empty dining room, running my fingers across the table where Brandon had taken his first steps, where we'd celebrated 36 Christmases, where Paul had proposed over pot roast and green beans. Tomorrow, this room would witness one last family gathering, one last performance, one last deception. But this time, I'd be the director. My phone buzzed with a text from Brandon. "See you tomorrow. We'll get through this together." Together, as if we'd ever been on the same side. I texted back, "Looking forward to it. I have something special planned." Let him interpret that however he wished. Tomorrow would bring revelations beyond his wildest nightmares. The doormat was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous, a mother with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The transformation was complete. Tomorrow the trap would spring, and Brandon would learn that the woman who'd given him life could just as easily destroy it. Sunday dawned unseasonably warm, the kind of October day that felt like nature's last gift before winter. I woke at 5, my mind crystal clear, despite 3 hours of sleep. Today was the day Brandon thought he'd claim his inheritance. Instead, he'd discover the price of betrayal. I dressed carefully in the navy suit Paul bought me for our 20th anniversary. Professional, respectable, the kind of outfit that commanded attention in courtrooms and police stations. Brandon would recognize it from his swearing-in ceremony, where I'd stood beside him bursting with pride. By 9, I'd prepared an elaborate spread in the dining room. Brandon's favorite coffee cake, fresh fruit, imported cheeses. The table set with my grandmother's china, each piece a silent witness to what was coming. I placed 3 cups at precise angles, knowing exactly where everyone would sit. The doorbell rang at 9:45, 15 minutes early, eager to finalize their victory. I opened the door to find Brandon and Ashley dressed like they were attending a funeral. Perhaps they were. "Mom, you look wonderful." Brandon lied, his eyes already scanning past me into the house. "Come in," I said warmly. "I've made breakfast." They entered cautiously, clearly unsettled by my cheerful demeanor. Ashley clutched a folder thick with documents, her knuckles white around the edges. "Coffee," I offered, already pouring from the silver pot that had been Paul's mother's. "Maybe we should handle business first," Brandon suggested, but I waved him off. "Nonsense. We have all day. Sit, eat, we're family." That word made Ashley flinch. Good. Let them taste discomfort for once. We sat in our usual places, though nothing about this morning was usual. I served coffee cake with steady hands, watching them exchange confused glances. Where was the confused old woman they'd expected, the broken victim ready to sign away her life? "I've been thinking," I began conversationally, "about the day you were born, Brandon. 22 hours of labor. The doctors wanted to do a C-section, but I refused. I knew you'd come when you were ready." Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, you were so purple when you finally arrived, like a little eggplant with lungs. But when they put you on my chest, you looked right at me. Really looked like you were memorizing my face." "That's nice, Mom, but we need to discuss the arrangements." "Oh, we will." I smiled, taking a deliberate sip of coffee. "But first I want to share something. I've been recording our conversations lately. For posterity, you understand. Family history is so important." Ashley's cup rattled against its saucer. "Recording?" "Oh, yes, everything. Like last Sunday when you were discussing my nursing home placement. Sunrise Manor sounds lovely, though the lockdown wing seems a bit extreme. Don't you think?" The color drained from Brandon's face. "You were asleep." "Resting. There's a difference. Amazing what people say when they think you're not listening." I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen. Their voices filled the room crystal clear. "She's an obstacle. One that's about to be removed." Ashley lunged for the phone, but I'd anticipated that. I calmly moved it out of reach, continuing to eat my coffee cake as their own words condemned them. That's illegal," Brandon sputtered. "Recording without consent." "Actually, Counselor, Wisconsin is a one-party consent state. You taught me that during your first wiretapping case. I consent to recording conversations in my own home." The recording continued. Their laughter about me being a doormat, the gambling debts, the plan to change my medications, each word another nail in their legal coffin. "Turn it off," Ashley whispered. "Why, this is my favorite part." I increased the volume as Brandon detailed forging my signature on beneficiary forms. When it finished, silence settled over the room like morning fog. Brandon's lawyer mask had shattered completely, revealing something feral underneath. "You stupid woman," he hissed. "Do you know what you've done?" "Protected myself. Gathered evidence. Acted like the intelligent woman who raised you rather than the doormat you expected. I have power of attorney." He pulled documents from Ashley's folder, waving them like weapons. "You signed them. You gave me control." "Oh, those." I laughed, actually laughed. "Brandon, you really should read contracts more carefully. You have power of attorney over a single account containing $3,000. Congratulations. Try not to spend it all at once." He frantically flipped through pages, his face growing paler with each paragraph. These aren't the documents I prepared." "No, they're the ones my attorney prepared. The ones that protect me while giving you exactly what you deserve, which is to say almost nothing." "Your attorney?" Ashley's voice cracked. "Mark Stevens. You might remember him from your father's estate, Brandon. Lovely man, very thorough. He's particularly interested in elder abuse cases." "We're leaving." Brandon stood, yanking Ashley up with him. Oh, but you haven't heard the best part. Detective Gonzalez is also very interested in your activities. Financial fraud conspiracy, attempted murder through medication tampering. Such serious charges for a lawyer to face. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Through the dining room window, we could all see the police cars that had arrived silently during breakfast. You called the police, Brandon's voice broke like a teenager's. Yesterday. They've been listening to everything from a van outside. Wireless microphones are so advanced now. Thank you for confessing to the gambling debts, by the way. I'm sure your creditors will find that information fascinating during your bankruptcy proceedings. Ashley bolted for the back door, her heels clicking frantically on hardwood. She made it 3 steps before Detective Gonzalez appeared, badge, displayed handcuffs ready. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Walker, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, financial fraud, and attempted poisoning. You have the right to remain silent. Mom! Brandon turned to me, his eyes wild. Mom, please, I'm your son. Tell them this is a mistake. I stood slowly straightening my suit jacket. You're right, this is a mistake. Mine. I spent 30 years believing love meant accepting abuse. That sacrifice meant enabling cruelty. That being a good mother meant being a victim. I'll lose everything, he begged as Gonzalez's partner cuffed him. My license, my career, everything. Yes, I agreed simply. You will. Ashley was sobbing now, mascara streaming down her cheeks in black rivers. We just wanted to help you. We were worried. No, you wanted my money. You were worried I'd spend it before you could steal it. But don't worry, I'm sure Sunrise Manor has lovely rooms available, though probably not in the wing you picked for me. The officers led them out. Brandon still calling for me, still believing I'd save him like I always had. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who understood that love without boundaries was just another word for enablement. In the sudden silence, I stood among the remnants of our last family breakfast. 3 cups of cold coffee, untouched fruit, the empty chairs where my son and his wife had plotted my destruction. My phone rang, Mark Stevens checking in. It's done, I told him. How do you feel? I considered the question walking to the window where neighbors had gathered to watch Brandon being placed in the patrol car. Free. For the first time in my life, I feel free. The forensic accountant will meet you Monday to start documenting the theft. With the evidence you've gathered, full restitution is likely. I don't want his money back. I want him to understand what he's lost. After Mark hung up, I began clearing the table. Each plate washed carefully, each cup dried with precision. The ritual of cleaning grounded me, reminded me that life continued beyond betrayal. Detective Gonzalez returned as I was storing the china. Strong work, Mrs. Walker. Your recordings will make this an easy conviction. What happens now? Arraignment tomorrow. Bail hearing. Given the conspiracy charges and evidence of planning to flee, I doubt they'll get bond. And the gambling debts? Maria's expression darkened. Those people don't forgive debts because someone's in jail. Your son might want protective custody. Part of me felt a flutter of concern. The mother in me, not quite dead despite everything. Then I remembered him laughing about sedating me in a nursing home. He's a smart lawyer, I said. I'm sure he'll figure it out. After Maria left, I walked through my empty house. Tomorrow, I'd start bringing back my belongings from storage, rebuilding the life they'd tried to steal. But tonight, I wanted to feel the space, the possibility, the freedom of surviving. My phone buzzed with messages. Patricia horrified by the news, apologizing for doubting me. Cousins expressing shock. Church friends offering support. The isolation Brandon had crafted crumbling within hours of his arrest. But I didn't answer any of them. Not yet. Tonight was for solitude, for processing, for letting go of the son I'd thought I'd raised. Outside, the October sun set in brilliant oranges and purples, painting the sky like a promise. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the messy business of justice. Tonight, I poured a glass of Paul's favorite whiskey, the bottle hidden in the basement for special occasions. If surviving your child's betrayal wasn't special, nothing was. To new beginnings. I toasted the empty room, then laughed at the irony. At 68, with cancer in remission and a criminal for a son, I was starting over. The execution was complete. The trap had worked perfectly. Brandon and Ashley would face justice while I faced something far more frightening, a life lived for myself. For the first time in decades, I couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. 6 months later, I stood in the gallery of courtroom 4 watching my son face sentencing. Brandon had lost 40 pounds, his designer suits replaced by county jail orange. The gambling creditors had found him inside despite protective custody. His broken nose had healed, crooked, a permanent reminder that some debts can't be discharged in bankruptcy. Judge Harrison, a woman known for her stance on elder abuse, reviewed the case summary. Mr. Walker, you systematically planned to steal your mother's life savings, commit her to a facility against her will, and altered her medications to create symptoms of dementia. This court has rarely seen such calculated cruelty from a child against a parent. Brandon's public defender, a tired-looking man named Carl Peterson, made one last plea for leniency. But what mercy could they expect? The evidence was overwhelming. My recordings, the forged documents, Ashley's full confession in exchange for a lighter sentence. Brandon Walker. Judge Harrison's voice rang with finality. This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Upon release, you'll serve 5 years probation and pay full restitution to your mother. 8 years. Brandon would be 50 when released, his law license gone, his reputation destroyed. The boy who'd wanted to be a judge would instead be a felon. Additionally, the judge continued, you're ordered to have no contact with your mother unless she initiates it. Any violation will result in immediate return to custody. As the bailiffs led him away, Brandon turned to look at me one last time. His eyes held a mix of rage and something else, confusion perhaps, as if he still couldn't understand how his doormat mother had orchestrated his downfall. I left the courthouse alone, driving to the small beach cottage I'd bought in Door County. 2 bedrooms, a screened porch facing Lake Michigan, and no memories of betrayal. The settlement from selling the old house had more than covered it, with enough left for the life I'd never allowed myself to imagine. William met me on the porch with chamomile tea and a gentle smile. We'd met at the cancer support group, 2 people learning to fight battles we'd never chosen. He'd lost his wife to lymphoma and his daughter to greed, remarkably similar to my story. Our wounded hearts had recognized each other immediately. How was it? He asked, taking my hand. Final, I said. It's finally over. We sat in comfortable silence, watching waves chase seagulls along the shore. Inside, dinner simmered in the slow cooker, a recipe from his Italian grandmother. We took turns cooking, now sharing the labor and the joy. Patricia called. William said eventually, she wants to visit next weekend. My sister and I had slowly rebuilt our relationship once Brandon's lies were exposed. She'd cried for hours when she learned the truth, apologizing for ever doubting me. Family could be repaired, we'd learned, with enough truth and time. Tell her yes, she can stay in the guest room. The one with all your medical journals? I laughed. Since recovering, I'd returned to nursing part-time at the local clinic. Not for money, but for purpose. 3 days a week, I helped elderly patients navigate healthcare systems, watching for signs of abuse everyone else missed. My experience had become my mission. Dr. Hampton's visiting next month too, I added. She's presenting our paper at the Chicago conference. Sarah and I had co-authored a study on medical gaslighting in elder abuse cases. Brandon's systematic alteration of my medications had provided a textbook example. Academic journals were interested. Speaking invitations poured in. My girlfriend, the famous researcher, William teased. Hardly famous, just angry enough to make noise. The best kind of noise. That evening, we hosted our weekly dinner for what I'd come to call the Survivors Club. 5 elderly people who'd escaped abusive family situations, sharing meals and strength. Margaret from next door had been right to warn me, having survived her own grandson's attempts at financial exploitation. Any word from him? Asked Patricia Sung, whose daughter had tried to have her declared incompetent to steal her restaurant. Nothing direct. His lawyer sent a letter asking for commissary money. The table erupted in bitter laughter. Even from prison, Brandon expected me to provide. What did you do? Asked George, whose son had sold his house while he was in the hospital. Sent him a check for $30, what he'd have earned working one day at minimum wage. Seemed appropriate. More than I'd send, Margaret muttered. After dinner, we shared updates. Patricia's restaurant was thriving under her management. George had won his lawsuit and bought a condo in Florida. Everyone was rebuilding, refusing to let betrayal define their final chapters. As they left, each person hugged me. These weren't just survivors, but warriors, proof that 70 wasn't too old to fight back. That night, William and I walked the beach under a full moon. The October air was crisp winter approaching, but not yet arrived. Much like us, I thought. In the autumn of our lives, but not yet winter. I love you, he said suddenly, stopping in the sand. I love you too. No, I mean, he pulled out a small box. I love you enough to try again, to believe that not all families are toxic, to build something new from the ashes of what we lost. Inside lay a simple gold band with a single pearl. Not a diamond trying to prove something, just a pearl formed from irritation into beauty. Perfect. I'm 71, he continued. You're 68. We've got 20 good years if we're lucky. I want to spend them with you. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes to all of it. We married the following spring in my garden, surrounded by survivor friends and the family members who'd proven themselves trustworthy. Patricia stood as my maid of honor. William's son, who'd supported him through his wife's death, served as best man. Dr. Hampton officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. These two have survived cancer, betrayal, and the American healthcare system. She joked. Marriage should be easy in comparison. As we exchanged vows, I thought about the woman I'd been 2 years ago, dying of cancer while my son plotted to steal everything, so convinced that sacrifice equaled love that I'd nearly sacrificed myself into non-existence. That woman was gone, replaced by someone I actually liked, someone who said no without guilt, who recognized manipulation disguised as concern, who understood that love meant boundaries, not bondage. You may kiss the bride, Sarah announced. William's kiss tasted like promises kept and new beginnings. The small crowd cheered, throwing birdseed because rice was bad for birds. Even in celebration, we were practical people who'd learned to consider consequences. At the reception held in the community center we'd rented for $50, I stood to make a toast. To everyone here who refused to be victims, who fought back when the world said we were too old, too weak, too trusting, who proved that 70 is the new 50, but with better boundaries and less tolerance for nonsense. Hear, hear, the room chorused. Later, as William and I danced to At Last by Etta James, he whispered, Any regrets? Only one, I admitted. I wish I'd learned to value myself sooner. But then you might not have ended up here. He was right. Every betrayal, every sacrifice, every moment of pain had led to this dance floor, this man, this life I'd never imagined possible. The mother in me still existed, tucked away like old photos in an album. Sometimes I wondered if Brandon had found peace in prison, if he'd used the time for genuine reflection. His sentence had 2 years left. Soon enough, he'd be free to rebuild his life. But I wouldn't be part of that rebuilding. Some bridges, once burned, provided better light than passage. A week after the wedding, a letter arrived from Sunrise Manor, not the facility Brandon had chosen for me, but a different one where Ashley was serving her 2-year sentence in minimum security. Mrs. Walker. Her handwriting looked shaky. I wanted you to know that I think about what we did every day. Prison counseling has helped me understand how greed poisoned our thinking. I'm sorry it doesn't begin to cover it, but I'm sorry. When I get out, I'm going to speak at elder abuse prevention seminars. Try to stop others from making our mistakes. I hope someday you can forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. I read it twice, then filed it away. Forgiveness would come eventually for my own peace, but not yet. The wounds were still too fresh, the betrayal too calculated. Life settled into new rhythms: morning walks with William, afternoon shifts at the clinic, evening dinners with rotating groups of friends, weekends at the cottage reading medical journals and mystery novels with equal pleasure. 1 year after the trial, I published a memoir, The Doormat's Revenge, A Mother's Journey from Victim to Victor. The dedication read, "To every parent who confused love with enabling, it's never too late to learn the difference." The book tour took me to senior centers and libraries across the Midwest. At each stop, someone would approach with their own story: a father whose daughter stole his identity, a grandmother raising grandchildren while their parents drained her savings. Each story strengthened my resolve to keep speaking. How do you recognize the signs audiences always asked? When love comes with a price tag, I'd answer. When family becomes an excuse for abuse. When you're so busy caring for others that you forget you deserve care too. Brandon never wrote. I heard through legal channels that he'd earned his GED teaching certificate, was tutoring other inmates. Perhaps prison had taught him what privilege couldn't. Perhaps not. It wasn't my burden to carry anymore. 2 years into marriage, William and I started a foundation, Silver Strength, protecting elderly assets and dignity. We funded legal aid for seniors facing financial abuse, partnered with banks to flag suspicious account activity, and lobbied for stronger elder protection laws. "You've built quite a legacy," Patricia said during one visit. "Mom and Dad would be proud." "I hope so," I said, though I think they'd be more proud that I finally learned to protect myself. The doormat was truly gone, replaced by someone who understood that the best revenge isn't living well, though I was certainly doing that. The best revenge is living authentically, refusing to shrink yourself for anyone else's comfort. At 71, cancer-free and remarried, I'd finally learned the lesson that had eluded me for so long. Self-worth isn't selfish. Boundaries aren't cruel. And saying no to those who would harm you is the highest form of saying yes to yourself. The transformation was complete. From victim to victor, from doormat to defender, from sacrificial mother to empowered woman. It had cost me a son, but given me a life. And that trade, painful as it was, had been worth every tear. Dear friends, if you've made it this far in my story, you know how hard it can be to recognize when love has turned toxic, especially from our own children. Have you or someone you know faced a similar betrayal? What signs did you miss? And what finally opened your eyes? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the wake-up call another person needs. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of survival and triumph. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to demand respect, and to live life on your own terms. Thank you for joining me on this journey from darkness to light. Remember, you are never too old to start over, never too kind to deserve respect, and never too loving to demand boundaries. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and most importantly, stay true to yourself.